Welcome back to Tears for Fears. I'm your host, Megan Shoup. You can find me on Twitter at Megs08DFS. And I had a great week 13 tiers, and I'm ready to keep it rolling right into week 14. But before we go tier by tier and find our favorite plays, I need you to do 3 things. First, like this episode. Second, subscribe to the Mayo Media Network. And third, check out our sponsor, Run the Sims. As you can see, each week I use Run the Sims to help me make my tiers decisions, and you can too. So with that, let's get right to it. As we do each week, let's take a quick look back before we look ahead. And right now you're looking at my $12 league that I had a major sweat on. At one point, I thought I had a chance to win it. As you can see, I was only 12.5 points from first place. Then towards the end of the 4 o'clock games, it looked like I was going to get 5th. After Deontay Johnson's second touchdown, I fell to 17th. But this lineup is especially exciting to me because this is the lineup I shared with you guys during last week's Tears for Fears. So pretty cool. Unfortunately, it was just a 1v1 in Tier 8 to T. Higgins, who was in my core plays, and I did play. I just had more exposure and played Connor more. So the 1v1s in tiers are a real heartbreaker, but that is the name of the game. So we're just going to stay on our core plays. I need to rotate my plays better. And I just wanted to share my excitement with you that, yes, it was a good tiers week, but what was really cool was the lineup that I shared on this show last week had some legs and did really well. So let's try to produce another good one here and get right into week 14. In tier 1, we have Justin Herbert, Tom Brady, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. And any of these guys would be a scary fade. So I'm going to give you my exposure from least to most exposure. So number 4 is going to be Justin Herbert. He's playing potentially without 2 of his top weapons in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. They're both on the COVID-19 list, so you have to pay attention to that news as we get closer to Sunday. Plus, I don't think he's going to need much back and forth because the Giants are playing like their 3rd string quarterback. Number 3 is going to be Patrick Mahomes. Yes, he and the Chiefs have looked a bit broken for a lot of this season, but the last time they went off was against this Raiders team, so I want some exposure there. Number 1 and 2 are in the same game, and number 2 is going to be Josh Allen. I think that he's going to be playing from behind. The Bills don't run much. He can run himself, and so I think he could find a ceiling game here. And number 1 is usually who my favorite tier 1 play is, and that's Tom Brady. Look, I think this is going to end up being our league MVP. The Bucs throw at an exceptionally high rate, and I see him putting up the numbers here too. So for tier 1, Tom Brady is my favorite play. In tier 2, we have Deebo Samuel, Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara, Tyreek Hill, and Stephon Diggs. And as you can see, we have Q tags to pay attention to. In the case of Deebo Samuel, I think he's very questionable to play, so I'm going to operate under that assumption that he isn't playing. But again, if he does end up playing and pay attention to practice reports, I definitely will be considering him, especially if Mitchell is out and he could be needed in kind of a featured running back role as well as wide receiver too. So my core plays are obviously the guys left, Eckler, Kamara, Hill, and Diggs. I do think Eckler will play. He got in a limited practice. With this situation, it's kind of like the receivers have the higher ceiling and the running backs have the higher floor. So, I like all 4 of these guys and I'm going to have exposure to all of them. But I think the best floor ceiling combo is Austin Eckler. If he is healthy, if he gets more practices in and does indeed play on Sunday, then I think he's my favorite play because of just that floor ceiling and just the matchup against the Giants and needing to lean on him more if Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are out on which they are on the COVID-19 list. So that's another thing to watch. So with all those factors in play, I really do like Austin Eckler this week, and he is my tier 2 play. In tier 3, we have Joe Mixon, Leonard Fournette, Keenan Allen, Nick Chubb, and CeeDee Lamb. And as you can see, we have news to pay attention to here as well. Joe Mixon did not practice on Thursday due to a non-COVID related illness, and Keenan Allen is on the COVID-19 list, so he would need 2 negative tests in order to play on Sunday. So I'm kind of ruling Keenan Allen out. I think that's very unlikely. And I'm also fading or will have very low exposure to Mixon and Chubb. In the case of Mixon, his targets have been very inconsistent, even though he gets the running back volume. And these guys that have these non-COVID related illnesses and don't practice late in the week kind of makes me nervous because they either usually end up not playing or not playing well. And in the case of Nick Chubb, he's now splitting the backfield again with Kareem Hunt, and Ravens have a very tough run defense. So it's weird in this high of a tier, but I really just have two plays in Leonard Fournette and CeeDee Lamb. And I think both are in great spots to have potential ceiling games. But my favorite play is CeeDee Lamb. Yes, Washington is playing better, especially their defense after the bye, but where you can still beat them is in the slot. And I think Lamb is set up for a big game here. So CeeDee Lamb is my tier 3 play. In tier 4, we have Chris Godwin, Cordarrelle Patterson, Travis Kelce, Eli Mitchell, George Kittle, and Javonte Williams. And I think it's very unlikely that Eli Mitchell plays. He's dealing with 2 injuries. And I also really don't have interest in Patterson in this tier. So my core plays in this tier are Chris Godwin, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and Javonte Williams. Right now, Melvin Gordon is questionable, but it looks like he will play. If for some reason Gordon doesn't play, Javonte Williams would instantly become my favorite play. Even if Gordon does play, I still think Javonte Williams is a core play in this tier because they're playing the Lions. And I think he proved last week how good he can be and what his ceiling can be. So he still will be in my core plays. So again, out of those 4 core plays, I'm going to be rotating through them. But my favorite play here is going back to Kelce. You know, the Raiders really get torched by tight ends. Kelce has always performed well against the Raiders. And again, I'm kind of going to go back with a bounce back spot with the Chiefs here. So Kelce is my tier 4 play. And in tier 5, we're back to quarterbacks again with Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, Derek Carr, Ryan Tannehill, and Russell Wilson. And for me, there's actually 3 tiers within this tier. The first tier of Derek Carr and Ryan Tannehill, I have no interest in. I'm going to fade. I just don't see a ceiling for them. The second tier of Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, I'm going to have a little exposure to. With Lamar Jackson, I don't like relying on a rushing floor. He hasn't been playing well lately, but it's all kind of relative to who he's in a tier with. And in tier 5 and what his rushing floor does bring, I'll have a little exposure there. Joe Burrow, his finger injury makes me nervous. Cincinnati hasn't been throwing as much, but if Mixon is limited or out, then, you know, they could have to rely on Burrow a little more, and the 49ers secondary doesn't scare me. So I'll have a little exposure to Burrow, but I'll have the most exposure to Dak Prescott and Russell Wilson. So Wilson and Prescott are my 2 core plays. I think Wilson showed that he was improving last week and played much better to kind of give us a little more confidence. He could have had a much better line than he actually did. But my favorite play is Dak Prescott. Yes, Washington defense is playing better since the bye. Thank God. You can tell I'm a Washington fan. And yes, they do like to play keep away. So that part makes me a little nervous. But they're also kind of a pass funnel. So I really think that Dak could put up some major passing stats here and then hit his ceiling and be the best play in tier 5. So for that reason, Dak Prescott is my tier 5 play. In tier 6, we have Jamar Chase, Mike Evans, Ezekiel Elliott, Mike Williams, Terry McLaurin, and Tyler Lockett. As you can see, Mike Williams is on the COVID-19 list as a close contact. So he could play if he gets negative tests leading all the way up into Sunday. So we probably won't know until Sunday. So you may want to make some arrangements so that you can do some late swaps to Mike Williams to get exposure to him, because if Keenan Allen doesn't play and Mike Williams does play, I have a lot of interest in Mike Williams. The only strong fade I have is Ezekiel Elliott. As I said, it's hard to run against Washington, and Elliott looks like he's playing injured. So I'm going to rotate through Chase, Evans, Williams if he plays, McLaurin, and Lockett. In the case of Chase and McLaurin, they are very boom bust. They're going to be riskier plays, but they're also going to come at lower ownership. So if they hit, you're going to get them at lower ownership, but way riskier. So the plays, I'm going to have exposure to them and take my shots on them. But the plays I'm going to play more of are Evans and Lockett. I think both are in great spots and have safer floor ceiling combos. But my favorite play is Mike Evans. I like all of the Buccaneers pass catchers this week, but Evans actually has the best matchup out of all of them. So for that reason, Mike Evans is my tier 6 play. And in tier 7, we have Marquise Brown, DJ Moore, Mark Andrews, T. Higgins, Hunter Renfrow, Antonio Gibson, DK Metcalf, and Chuba Hubbard. The ones I'm fading are the Panthers, basically. With Cam, it's hard to trust a low volume passing, and he didn't look great his last outing, so I'm fading more. And Hubbard, he basically isn't getting any passing work, and then if Cam is potentially vulturing touchdowns, it's hard to see a ceiling from him. So my core plays are a lot of them, but I'm going to rotate through Brown, Andrews, Higgins, Renfro, Gibson, and Metcalf. With these core plays, I'm really going to try to rotate through them, but there are some that I like a little more than others. I think Metcalf has potentially the highest ceiling in this tier, obviously, if he kind of breaks back out and if Russ is continuing to play better. I think Gibson has the safest floor, and especially if McKissick is out, we still are waiting to see because he's in concussion protocol, then Gibson really has a floor-ceiling combo. So for that reason, Antonio Gibson is my tier 7 play. And in Tier 8, we have Rob Gronkowski, Josh Jacobs, Amari Cooper, Dontrell Hilliard, Elijah Moore, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Saquon Barkley, and Michael Gallup. And for this tier, I kind of have 4 tiers within this tier. I have no interest in Hilliard or Barkley based on the offenses they're playing in. I'll have a little interest and sprinkle Cooper and Gallup. I just think they are riskier plays even in Tier 8. I think probably because I love Lamb so much, but of course another Cowboys receiver could get there. And again, it's all kind of relative within this tier. And if somebody else goes off and they're just getting 15 points. So I want a little exposure there, but I just don't feel as comfortable with them as I do with Lamb. And then the third tier I have is Elijah Moore and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think those two, I've kind of pinned them as the ones that'll be very low owned, but absolutely could find a ceiling somehow. I mean, if Edwards-Helaire is getting kind of those green zone touches and high value touches, he could. And Elijah Moore has, just been progressing each week and been getting more targets and volume. So I like them as low owned, potential high ceiling guys. But my safest plays and my core plays that I really like the most are Rob Gronkowski and Josh Jacobs. So, I'm going to have exposure to some of all the guys I mentioned, but I'm going to have the most exposure to Gronkowski and Jacobs. And Jacobs is my favorite play. He's got the best floor ceiling combo. He's getting targets now. Carr's just kind of dumping off to Hunter Renfro and Josh Jacobs. So for that reason, Josh Jacobs is my tier 8 play. That'll do it for this week's Tears for Fears. What do you guys think of my lineup? Let me know in the comments section, and let me know how you're handling all the injury situations this week and who your favorite core plays are. I really hope this helps your guys' Tears process. Before you get out of here, be sure to like this episode, subscribe to the Mayo Media Network, and check out Run the Sims so that they can help you make your core decisions on Tears too. So with that, let's go make some money, and I'll see you here next week.